Carrie. Hi, Olivia. So, back to the Enchanted Wood on this lovely, beautiful Easter Sunday. Happy Easter. Hopefully we'll talk to you later. Looking forward to that. So, if you remember in the Enchanted Wood, the children were trying to get the Saucepan Man back to his land before it disappeared. But he's deaf, remember. The Saucepan Man began to run downhill towards the children, but the ground all around suddenly tipped. Oh yes, they were in the rocking land, so everything was wobbling. And he and the children and Moonface found themselves running downhill away from the hole in the clouds where the precious ladder was. They tried to stop. They tried to walk back up the sudden hill, but the land tipped up all the more, and at last they couldn't stand up, but they had to lie down. Then they began to roll downhill. How they rolled, over and over and over, with the Saucepan Man making a frightful noise with all his pans. "Ow!" cried everyone. "We've lost the hole," shouted Joe. But before he could say any more, he bumped into a bush that knocked all the breath out of him. Soon everyone lay in a heap at the bottom of the hill and tried to get back their breath. "Now we're in a fix," said Bessie, dusting herself off. "What a tiresome land to have got into. Does it do this sort of thing all the time, Moonface?" "Oh yes," said Moonface. "It never stops. It heaves up here and it sinks down there, and it rocks to and fro and gives sudden little jerks. People do say there's a giant just underneath, trying to throw the land off his back." The rocking land was really most annoying. No sooner did the children stand up very carefully and try to walk a few steps than the earth beneath them either fell or tipped or slanted sideways in a very alarming manner. Then down they all went, rolling over and over. The Saucepan Man made a tremendous noise and almost cried when he saw how battered his saucepans and kettles were getting. "Moonface," yelled Joe, "how can we get out of here? Don't you know?" "We can only get out by going down the ladder that leads to the faraway tree," shouted back Moonface, who was busy rolling down a hill that suddenly appeared. Look for it all the time, or we'll never get away from here. As soon as the rocking land leaves the place where the faraway tree is, we've no way of escape." That gave the others a real shock. The thought of living in a land of bumps and jerks and jolts was not at all pleasant. They all began to look about for the hole through which they had come into the rocking land. Soon the earth began to do something rather different. It heaved up and down very quickly, as if it were breathing. When it heaved up, it threw the children and others into the air. When it breathed down, they rolled into holes and stayed there. It was all dreadfully uncomfortable. "I'm getting awfully bruised," shouted Bessie. "For goodness sake, let's find a place on this land where it's not quite so fidgety. I think we must be on the worst bit." As soon as the earth stopped heaving about, they all ran to where a wood grew, and there, just inside the wood, they saw a shop. It was such a surprising thing to see in the rocking land that they all stopped and stared. "What does it sell?" said Joe. "You don't feel well?" said Saucepan Man, quite deaf for a time. "I don't either. I feel as if I've been on a ship in a very rough sea." "I said, what does it sell?" "No, I didn't hear a bell," said the Saucepan Man, looking round as if he expected to see an enormous bell somewhere. Joe gave up. He looked hard at the shop. It was just a wide stall with a tiny house behind it. No one seemed to be there, but smoke rose from the chimney, so someone must live there. "Come on," Joe said to the others. "Take hold of hands so that we can keep together. We'll go and see this funny shop and see if we can get help." They walked up to it. The stall was piled high with cushions of all colours, each one with a rope tied to it. "How strange," said Bessie. "Cushions with ropes. Now who in the world would want to buy cushions here?" "Well, I would for one," said Moonface at once. "My goodness, if I had a fine fat cushion tied on the front of me and another tied at the back, I wouldn't mind being bumped about nearly so much." "Oh, of course, that's what the cushions and ropes are for," said Bessie joyfully. "Let's buy some, then we shan't get bruised any more." Just then a A sharp-nosed little woman with cushions tied all round her came out of the tiny house and looked at the children. She even had a small cushion tied on her head, and she did look funny. Fanny giggled. She was a dreadful giggler. The woman looked cross and glared at Fanny. "Do you want to buy my cushions?" she asked. "Yes, please," said Moonface, and he took out his purse. "How much are they?" 5 silver pieces of money each," said the woman, her green eyes shining as she saw Moonface's purse. Moonface looked at her in dismay. "That's much too high a price," he said. "I've only got 1 silver piece. Have you got any money, Saucepan Man?" "No, I don't sell honey," said Saucepan Man. "Money! Money!" shouted Moonface, showing the Saucepan Man his purse. "Oh, money," he said, taking out an enormous purse from one of his kettles. "Yes, I've plenty." But the great big purse was empty. The Saucepan Man stared at it in dismay. "All my money must have fallen out when I rolled about," he said. "There's nothing left." The children had no money at all. The sharp-nosed little woman shook her head when Moonface begged her to lend them cushions in return for his silver piece. "I don't lend anything," she said, and went back to her house, banging the door loudly. "It's too bad," said Moonface, taking hold of Joe's hand and walking on gloomily. "Mean old thing. Oh, look, there are some more people over there wearing cushions." Sure enough, they meant plenty of queer-looking folk, well padded with cushions of all colours, sizes and shapes, walking carefully about the paths. One man wore a big eider-down all round him, which Bessie thought was a fine idea. "The rocking land is quite peaceful for a change," she said to Fanny. But she spoke too soon, for even as they said these words, the earth began to heave up, first one way and then another. Over went the children, and everybody else rolled here and there and up and down. "Oh," groaned the children. "Wish I had a few cushions," cried Moonface, who had rolled onto his big nose and bent it sideways. Crash, crash, bang went the Saucepan Man, rolling on his kettles and pans. "Oh, look!" suddenly shrieked Bessie in delight, and pointed back towards the little wood where the shop was. The earth there had risen steeply up, and all the cushions were rolling down towards the children. "Grab them!" shouted Joe. So they all caught the cushions and began to tie them firmly round themselves. "It serves that old woman right," said the Saucepan Man, as he tried his hardest to put cushions round himself and his saucepans. Suddenly, one of the people of the rocking land gave a frightened shout and clutched hold of a nearby tree. A strange wind blew with a low musical sound. "Now what's going to happen?" cried Moonface. "Get hold of a tree, get hold of a tree," shouted the people about. "When the wind makes that sound, it means that the whole of the land is going to tip up sideways and try and roll everybody off. Your only hope is to catch hold of a tree." Sure enough, the land was slowly tipping up, not in bits and pieces as it had done before, but the whole of it. It was very extraordinary. Moonface was frightened. He tried to get to a tree. He shouted to the others, "Catch hold of a tree! Hurry up, hurry up!" But not one of them could, for they had left the wood behind them and were in a field. Slowly and surely the land tipped sideways, and the children and Moonface and old Saucepan Man began to roll downhill on their cushions. They were not bruised, but they were very frightened. What would happen if they rolled right off the land? Down they went, nearer and nearer to the edge of the rocking land, and then quite suddenly Moonface disappeared. One moment he was there, the next he was gone. It's very strange. But in half a minute they heard his voice, lifted up in the greatest excitement. I say, everyone, I've fallen down the hole to the ladder that leads to the faraway tree. I'll throw my cushion up through the hole so you'll know where it is. Roll to it if you can. Hurry!" Then the children and the Saucepan Man saw 2 cushions appear, and they knew where the hole was. They did their best to roll to it, and one by one they got nearer and nearer. Bessie rolled right down it and landed on the top of the ladder. Joe rolled down next, missed the ladder, and landed with a bump on the top branch of the faraway tree. The Saucepan Man rolled to it next, but he got stuck in the hole, for he was now so fat with cushions as well as kettles that he could hardly get through. "Oh, quick, quick," shouted Joe. "Get in, Saucepan Man, get in. Poor Fanny will roll right past the hole if you don't hurry." The Saucepan Man saw Fanny rolling past. Poor Fanny! Once she rolled past the hole, she couldn't possibly get back again, for it would be all uphill. Quick as lightning, Saucepan Man reached out his hand and caught hold of one of the ropes that tied Fanny's cushion to her back. She stopped with a jerk. One of the Saucepan Man's kettles gave way, and he fell through the hole to the ladder, making an awful noise. Moonface caught him, and then the Saucepan Man gave a tug at Fanny's rope, and she came down the hole too, landing softly on the top branch of the faraway tree, because she was very well padded with her cushions. "Well, thank goodness you found the hole, Moonface," said everyone, still looking rather scared. "What an adventure!" So that's the end of that chapter, and the next chapter is called An Invitation from Moonface and Silky. So you'll have to wait for tomorrow to find out what happens. So, have a good day. Lots of love from Grandma. See you soon.